Who is BTS? Just a K-pop band, or the quiet heartbeat of a generation longing to love freely? Without shouting slogans or waving flags, BTS has touched the LGBTQ+ community in the most gentle yet powerful way. In this video, we explore why BTS isn't just music. They're a safe space, a voice, a light for those who've ever felt unseen. Stay with us as we uncover the deeper story behind their silent but profound support. Before they became legends, they were just 7 boys from a company no one believed in. BTS didn't debut with fanfare or sign a multi-million-dollar contract. They emerged from the margins of an industry obsessed with perfection, one that fears difference, avoids controversy, and especially shuns any talk of queerness. In South Korea, where conversations about LGBTQ+ rights remain taboo, silence isn't just a matter of course, it's survival. And for male idols, that silence is deafening. But from the very beginning, BTS carried something different. Not a slogan, not a statement, but a quiet, undeniable defiance. They didn't play by the rules. While other rookies sang safe lyrics and flashed safe smiles, BTS talked about pain, about pressure, about not fitting in. Their songs weren't just catchy, they were confessions. And for fans who'd spent their lives feeling invisible, especially queer fans, the songs were a lifeline. They never said gay rights. They didn't need to. Their empathy was strong enough. Soon that empathy grew. As their influence grew, so did their courage. Nam Jun, better known by his stage name RM, began sending heartfelt words of encouragement, small but powerful gestures. In 2013, he tweeted about Macklemore and Ryan Lewis' Same Love, a song about LGBTQ+ equality. No denial, no backing down, just respect. And in a country where even acknowledging such a song can provoke backlash, the moment is important. It says to fans, especially gay ones, I see you, I hear you, you matter. Nam Jun doesn't stop there. In interviews, he often talks about love in universal terms, genderless, limitless. In his solo work, from Trivia Love to Mono to Indigo, he's explored identity, vulnerability, and the desire to be accepted for who you are. For the leader of the biggest boy band on the planet, that language isn't just poetic, it's revolutionary. He's not an attention seeker, he's creating space. But RM isn't alone. Jin, the eldest, has led the group in his own way. He rarely talks about politics, but his actions speak for themselves. Jin treats every fan with the same warmth, no matter what they look like, how they dress, or what their identity is. No shyness, no hesitation, just dignity. And in an industry where masculinity is often defined by distance, Jin's grace feels radical. He doesn't have to say he supports LGBTQ+ fans. He shows it every time he looks them in the eye and smiles non-judgmentally. Over time, the world has taken notice. BTS isn't just performing, they're connecting. Their concerts have become havens. Their lyrics have become safe spaces. And for queer fans around the world, many of whom have never seen themselves reflected in a K-pop group before, BTS isn't just artists. They've become allies, even if they've never used the word. Not because they wave rainbow flags, but because they've never looked the other way. This quiet allyship goes beyond words and stagecraft. It's in the way they deliver their messages, in the gender-neutral pronouns in their songs, in the intimate, emotional stories that make room for all kinds of love. While other bands cling to stereotypes, BTS have built a universe where identity is fluid, where you don't have to explain who you are to feel understood. And the fans responded. The LGBTQ+ ARMY community not only followed BTS, but thrived because of them. They made fan art, wrote letters, and stood in the front row holding rainbow signs that read, "Thank you for letting me be me." And BTS never backed down, never looked uncomfortable, never asked them to tone it down. That quiet acceptance became one of the group's most powerful messages. Come out as you are, and you'll never be alone here. In a country where coming out can end a career, BTS never had to declare. Instead, they created a culture of care. A culture that told millions of queer fans, you belong here, you're worthy, you're not a mistake. That message, delivered without a press release or a parade, has become part of BTS's DNA. It permeates their art, their actions, and their legacy. So when the question is asked, can the world's biggest boy band really stand up for the LGBTQ+ community without saying it? The answer in BTS's case is clear. They do. Not with slogans, with sincerity. Not with sensationalist headlines, with heart. And sometimes that silence is the loudest truth. They never spoke. They never flashed a camera or waved a rainbow flag on stage. But somehow, for millions of queer fans around the world, BTS said exactly what they needed to hear, without having to say it out loud. It started quietly, in the shadows of bigger moments, between the lines of lyrics, in the stillness of a dance. BTS never considered themselves spokespersons for LGBTQ+ rights. But their art did something perhaps more significant. It created space for silence, for tenderness, for people who rarely see themselves reflected in pop music. One of the first signals came in the form of a haunting melody. The Truth Untold, a song wrapped in pain, tells the story of someone too afraid to show their true self, convinced that if anyone saw who they really were, they would never be loved. It's not labeled a queer song, but the queer community doesn't need a label to recognize the truths that lie within, hiding their true selves, longing for connection, living in fear of rejection. It's a story countless LGBTQ+ people know by heart, and for many, the song is more than a ballad, it's a mirror. Then there's the visuals. V's Singularity comes like a dream. Clad in velvet and darkness, V dances alone, entangled in coats, wrapped in empty sleeves, reaching for something he can't hold. There's no clear story, but it doesn't need to be. The performance was about identity and disconnection, about the desire to be touched, and the fear that you can't be. The way he moves, light, graceful, elegant, isn't just beautiful, it's transgressive. In a genre that often imposes gender, V refuses to be pigeonholed. And in doing so, he allows fans to explore themselves, beyond expectations, beyond stereotypes, beyond fear. But it's not just their solo work. Even in their group image, BTS reject the binary boundaries that so many find themselves trapped in. They wear sheer blouses, pearl earrings, glittery eye makeup, not for show, but as part of everyday life. They dance tenderly together, hug each other without shame, sob on stage, and they do it all without regret. Few embody this spirit better than Jimin, soft-spoken, thoughtful, graceful in every gesture and message. He never tries to be masculine to please the public. His body language is gentle, his fashion choices refined and radiant. In another industry, he might have been mocked, but Jimin never falters, never stiffens. And in that quiet confidence, LGBTQ+ fans see something divine, a soft yet strong man, a reminder that femininity, when expressed willingly, is not weakness. It's freedom. Then there's Jungkook, the youngest member, but no less determined. He could have safely stayed within the mainstream. Instead, he reached beyond it. He chose to cover songs by Troye Sivan, an openly gay artist. On Fools, Jungkook didn't change a single lyric. He didn't reverse a single pronoun. He sang it exactly as it was written, a love story between two boys. And when he performed Sam Smith's I'm Not the Only One, he did the same. No editing. No fear. Just emotion. To many, these decisions may seem small. But to queer fans, especially those still struggling with self-acceptance, they're huge. Because when the world teaches you to erase yourself, even the smallest recognition can feel like survival. What makes it all the more powerful is that BTS never tried to exploit it. They didn't turn it into a marketing tool. They didn't flaunt it for attention. They just keep showing up. Genuine. Thoughtful. They let queer fans see themselves, not just in their lyrics, but in the way BTS moves around the world. When fans wave rainbow flags at concerts, BTS doesn't shy away. They smile, sometimes they wave back, other times they simply look, with kindness, with acceptance. But what they never do is look away. And maybe that's the magic of it all. BTS doesn't represent queer fans. They don't speak for them, they create space for themselves. They allow their art to be inclusive of everyone. No borders, no binaries. They create a world where softness is protected, and difference is not just tolerated but quietly celebrated. In that way, their silence isn't an absence, it's an invitation, an open door, a place to rest, an unmistakable mirror. So no, they never speak. But if you listen closely, you will hear, and if you need to, you will feel. A love that needs no doubt, a truth that needs no shouting, and a voice, soft, steady, and loud enough to echo through the hearts of millions who have waited a lifetime to be heard. As an American audience, I felt every word. BTS didn't have to make grand statements. Their quiet choices spoke volumes, staying true to the original lyrics, moving gracefully, wearing what felt right. They never took their eyes off us. And for queer fans like me, that simple act felt like seeing for the first time, not as a headline. Thank you, BTS, for making silence safe and music home. They never held a press conference. They never stood on stage and said, "We support the LGBTQ+ community." There were no sensational headlines, no rainbow-themed campaigns, and yet somehow BTS have built one of the safest and gentlest spaces in popular music for queer fans. They didn't shout it, they didn't brand it, they simply created a space, a quiet room, a loving room. And over time, that room has become a refuge for people who have spent their lives on the margins of society. That space takes many forms. Sometimes it comes in the form of a song like Magic Shop, where listeners are invited into a healing world beyond judgment. A place where tears are welcome, where pain is not something to hide. "You gave me the best of me," they sing. For many queer fans, it's more than music, it's refuge. A space where they don't have to explain why the world hurts, why they feel abandoned, why they need more than the world is willing to give. And then 0 o'clock comes along. Tucked quietly at the end of the album, it whispers a hope that doesn't demand perfection. You'll be happy, they promise. Just wait. At 0 o'clock, it doesn't fix anything. But for queer fans living in a world that often calls them wrong, broken, invisible, that little message is revolutionary. It's not a cure. It's a comfort. Like someone gently taking your hand and saying, "I'm still here." And then there's Epiphany. Just Jin and the piano. No grandiose set pieces. Just a pained voice saying he's finally realized the person he's supposed to love is him. No gendered lyrics, no narrative labels, just pure, open revelation. For queer fans, many of whom have spent their lives wondering whether self-love is even allowed, that line, "You're the one I should love," feels like something sacred. It echoes through headphones late at night when the world is quiet but questions still linger. And suddenly, they don't feel alone anymore. But BTS doesn't stop at songs. Their concerts have become sacred spaces, temples of tenderness. When a fan waves a rainbow flag, they smile. When a guy reaches out at a fan event, they return the favor. Now, there are iconic, cherished videos of BTS members hugging gay, transgender, and gender nonconforming fans without hesitation. No flinching, just warmth, just care. The kind of care that says, "You're safe here." Sometimes those fans cry, and BTS just smiles gently, like it's the most natural thing in the world. JHope, in particular, radiates something rare. It's not just joy, it's healing. In bright colors, painted nails, and sparkly accessories, he blows kisses to everyone. When a fan shows up one day in a dress, the next in a suit, he doesn't blink. He doesn't ask questions, he just sees the soul. And in doing so, he tells thousands of fans, "Show up however you want. You don't have to hide anything here." For a queer teenager in a small town, that comfort is powerful. Seeing someone like JHope, an international icon, see someone who looks like him and smile without judgment, that can be the difference between despair and hope. Because he doesn't flinch, he doesn't mock. He accepts, without fanfare, just with sincerity. It's quiet, but it resonates with every impact. That's the real magic. And that's the secret to BTS's safe space. It doesn't demand, it doesn't announce. It doesn't try to prove its allyship. It just is. It's in the way they move, the way they look at their fans, the way they allow people to just be themselves. In a world where queer people are often told they have to come out, to explain themselves in order to be worthy of love, BTS flips the script. You don't have to declare anything. You don't have to justify your presence. You belong here. No explanation needed. At their concerts, fans found something they didn't know they were missing. A place to cry without judgment. A place where rainbows weren't political. They were personal. A place where two girls could hold hands or two boys could hug and no one stared. No one whispered. They just smiled. Because when the energy in a room says you're okay, you don't have to say anything. The emotion says it all. And maybe that's why it matters so much. Because in a world where queer people often fight for every inch of safety, every breath of freedom, BTS brought something groundbreaking. Kindness, given willingly. They never said this is for the LGBTQ+ community, but they built something beautiful. And in doing so, their voices resonate louder than any slogan. Because sometimes the safest place in the world isn't the loudest. It's the place that sees you and doesn't look away. BTS have never declared a gender revolution. They haven't stormed the stage in protest or rewritten headlines with bold statements. But over time, they've broken one of the most rigid structures in Korean entertainment, the masculine box. They didn't break it with rage, they melted it, with presence, with softness, with style. In a genre where sharp lines and bold poses often define the man, BTS stepped in with lace shirts, pearl necklaces, and flowing skirts, without making a joke of it. Taehyung wore a sheer blouse, Jungkook wore a belt, Jimin wore nail polish, eyeliner, and a flower in his ear. These weren't costumes or jokes. They were expressions. Real, beautiful, and unabashedly graceful. Each outfit wasn't meant to shock, it was meant to be free. And throughout it all, the world watched, waiting for backlash. But BTS didn't blink. They stood still, calm, confident, like men with nothing to prove, because they didn't. RM, the leader often called the brains of BTS, expressed this quiet defiance in words rather than fashion. On his mixtapes Mono and Indigo, he didn't write love songs for her or him. He wrote about longing, loneliness, searching for something, for someone, maybe even for himself. And he never felt the need to label it, to lock it into a binary. He simply let the emotion run free. In interviews, RM has said, "Love has no boundaries." And he means it. Gender is not a requirement for connection, it's irrelevant. What matters is presence, soul, emotion. V2 speaks softly, but with a resounding truth. "I don't care if people see me as a man or a woman," he once said. "I just want to be free." That line, uttered by one of the world's biggest idols, is jarring, not because it's shouted, but because it's whispered in a space that rarely allows for whispers, especially soft whispers from men. Because in K-pop, tenderness is often policed. A boy who cries easily, who likes to cuddle, who stares into another man's eyes for too long, is told to be tougher, to be tougher, to be manly. But BTS has never believed in that. They embrace tenderness as strength. On stage, they hug, they sob, they cling to each other in joy and sorrow. And they don't flinch when fans record those moments and replay them a million times. Because they're not ashamed. To see Jin hug Jimin after a grueling performance. To see Suga lean on Jungkook in quiet comfort. To see V stroke RM's hair back in a loving gesture. These aren't staged moments. They're acts of caring, of trust, of being human in a world that often demands performance over presence. And somehow through it all, BTS has done something remarkable. They've never lost themselves. In an industry that constantly molds stars into something shinier, more masculine, more marketable, they've remained whole. Soft where others are edgy, flexibility where others are rigid, and authenticity where others are faking. What sets BTS apart isn't just that they challenge gender norms, it's that they don't treat those norms as enemies. They don't swing their fists, they just walk through them. Wear whatever they want. Feel whatever they feel. Love whatever they love. It's tempting to say they broke barriers, but that sounds too violent for what they've actually done. They didn't break things, they dissolved them with a look, a lyric, a choice. They broke down the walls that society has built around masculinity, not by fighting, but by being. By showing young boys that crying is okay, that wearing silk doesn't make you weak, that dancing gracefully isn't a betrayal of strength. That love, in any form, needs no explanation. Being a man doesn't mean being tough, it means being whole. And in a world where queer and gender non-conforming people often have to push against rigid definitions just to breathe, BTS has offered something groundbreaking. A mirror. Not a mirror warped by judgment or fear, but a mirror that says, you are allowed, you are enough, You don't have to shrink, because BTS hasn't shrunk. They've taken up space in glitter and leather, in ballads and rap verses, in whispers and screams. They've expanded the definition of what it means to be a man in K-pop and have never once apologized for it. And maybe that's what makes them dangerous to the systems that want to keep them locked up. But to the fans watching from bedrooms, classrooms, and quiet corners of the world, it's made them something else entirely. Safe. Freedom. Home. Some songs give you a beat to dance to. BTS, they give you a reason to live. Across continents, time zones, and languages, queer fans have whispered the same truth. I survive because of BTS. Amidst shame, silence, and fear, their songs have become a lifeline. Their presence, a warm embrace. And in those quiet bedrooms, under rainbow lights, or behind locked closet doors, one thing always resonates: you are not alone. For many, BTS is more than a band on a screen. They are a heartbeat, a hand to hold in the dark. BTS has never stood on stage and declared, "We support LGBTQ+ rights." Yet somehow, millions of queer fans around the world heard that message more powerfully than any speech. They felt it in every lyric that told them to love themselves, in every performance that allowed them to cry without shame, in every image that dared to redefine what masculinity could look like. For the queer army, BTS didn't have to say it, they lived it. Through their subtle gestures, emotional vulnerability, and courage to be soft in a harsh world, they became silent advocates for those who had no voice. Around the world, LGBTQ+ fans created art, poetry, and entire communities around BTS's message. Fan art celebrated the same-sex love between the members. Fan fiction recreated a world without gender norms. ARMY led fundraisers to support LGBTQ+ shelters, HIV awareness, and transgender rights. These aren't radical movements. They're fueled by the millions who feel seen in BTS's existence. From Seoul to Sao Paulo, fan clubs have evolved into safe havens, digital havens for queer expression, identity, and survival. One of the most powerful aspects of BTS is what they don't do. They don't censor queer fan expression. They don't alienate queer fans. They don't draw a line between themselves and the rainbow. And in a world where many celebrities still treat LGBTQ+ fandom as a PR minefield, BTS simply embrace it. No hesitation, no rules, no shame. It's a kind of quiet rebellion, not by shouting slogans, but by letting love, in all its forms, exist without apology. Jungkook, the golden maknae, is often called the safe zone by queer fans. Why? Because he's not afraid of same-sex affection in his fan art. He doesn't change his pronouns when covering love songs by openly gay artists. He performs, he smiles, he accepts, and to a trans boy in Malaysia or a queer girl in Brazil, that gentle nonchalance means a lot. The way Jungkook exists, without judgment, without barriers, has made him a symbol of unconditional presence. No declarations, just love, freely given. When RM released Mono, many queer fans found a voice for their invisible sadness. When Jimin stepped out in sheer fabric and light eyeliner, the boys who had hidden their femininity breathed a sigh of relief. When V said, "I don't care if people see me as masculine or feminine," non-binary armies felt like someone was finally speaking their truth. BTS didn't try to represent everyone, but in doing so, they reached out to everyone who had never felt represented. Each of them, in their own way, gave themselves permission to step outside of the boxes society had set for them. And this quiet revolution hasn't gone unnoticed. LGBTQ+ fans often say that BTS doesn't just validate their feelings, they give them a stage. In Seoul, in London, in New York, rainbow flags flew at BTS concerts as if they belonged to them. And they did, because in that stadium, no one was just a gay fan or a trans fan. They are ARMY, family. The cheers are not just for music, they are for survival, for hope, for the right to be seen for who you are. BTS's global influence has also spilled over into classrooms, family dinners, and online forums. Queer fans have shared BTS songs with their parents as a way to say, "This is who I am." Some have even come out in BTS lyrics. In cultures where queerness is still taboo, BTS has become a bridge, a shared space of beauty, vulnerability, and sometimes understanding that has long existed. Even in countries where being LGBTQ+ can be dangerous, BTS's name often eases the pain. They make love universal, not shameful. Perhaps the most touching truth, BTS has never asked anyone to change. They don't beg fans to come out. They don't force conversations. They simply extend their arms. And in doing so, they became a refuge, imperfect, apolitical, but deeply personal. They give queer fans the courage to breathe again, to love again, to hope again. Because sometimes all it takes is someone refusing to look away. And BTS never looked away. They looked right at us and smiled. That's right, BTS is a K-pop group. But for millions of LGBTQ+ people around the world, they were more than idols. They were the first time someone said, "You're worth it." The first time someone didn't look away. The first time love, in any form, felt safe. And maybe that's where the real magic lies. Not in the choreography or the charts, but in the quiet, bold way they told queer fans, "You belong here." No matter your gender, no matter your past, no matter who you love, with BTS, there's always a place for you. In an age where celebrities often declare their stances with loud slogans, social media hashtags, and colorful photos, BTS chose a different path. They never shouted. They never posted performative statements. But somehow in their silence, they said more than words. Over the course of a decade, they didn't just break records. They quietly redefined what it means to be an idol in a world that demands boxes and labels. They didn't need pride campaigns. They didn't wave flags. But in every soft song, every shared tear, and every quiet act of solidarity, they created something much more powerful: a space. A space where vulnerability is courage. A space where boys can cry, where they can wear makeup, where they can hug each other without feeling ashamed. A space where love yourself isn't just a catchy line, but a revolution in self-acceptance for fans who have never been told they're enough. For LGBTQ+ fans, that space has become sacred. Somewhere between the lines of music and the silence of interviews, queer fans heard something that resonated deeper than any support. They were seen, they were safe, and they were loved. Not in spite of who they were, but because of who they were. BTS has never stood under the rainbow flag. But for millions of people in the LGBTQ+ community, they have become the light within it. Not because they call themselves allies, but because they embody it. With every kind smile, every heartfelt message, every refusal to ridicule or judge. They showed the world that a global boy band can wear a skirt without apologizing. That vulnerability doesn't make a man less of a man. The affection between male friends doesn't have to be filtered, denied, or erased. For young queer fans in conservative families in countries where love is still criminalized, BTS is more than music. They are oxygen. The queer army grew up with BTS. They laughed with them, cried with them, learned to exist within themselves. And even if the members eventually took different paths, acting, producing, living a quiet life, for these fans, BTS wrote a chapter that will last forever. Not a chapter of showmanship, but a chapter of quiet healing. Not a chapter of slogans, but a chapter of survival. In a world where so many queer people are still told they need to be louder, stronger, more defiant just to survive, BTS has brought a different kind of strength. Strength that lives in gentleness. Strength that whispers, you don't have to fight all the time. Just being yourself is enough. And maybe that's the real revolution. That while they never called themselves supporters, they became something more precious. They became proof that kindness is still valuable. That gentleness is not weakness. That love, true love, doesn't need a label to be real. Years from now, long after the charts have changed and the headlines have faded, LGBTQ+ fans who clung to BTS lyrics in the dark will remember one thing. Not the hairstyle, not the awards, not the stadium lights. They will remember how BTS made them feel, seen, worthy, cool. And isn't that the most powerful legacy of all? Not to be remembered for the causes you stood for, but for the lives you quietly changed. So BTS has never claimed to be the voice of the LGBTQ+ community, but maybe they never had to, because they listened. And sometimes, listening is the greatest act of love. Have you ever felt heard, even in silence? Tell me, what legacy do you want to leave behind, just by being yourself? They never branded themselves as allies, never capitalized on pride merchandise, and never issued a press release for praise. But in a world where every statement seems staged and every act of support is monetized, BTS stands out simply by being authentic. Their love for their fans is never conditional. Their compassion is not something to be performed on camera. And that authenticity? Queer fans feel it in their bones. When Jungkook hugs a male dancer without hesitation, when Taehyun says he doesn't believe in gender-neutral fashion, when Jimin posts a photo with painted nails and a gentle smile, none of that is brave in their eyes. It's just them. But to someone who lives in fear, surrounded by silence and shame, those small moments resonate like thunder. They told their fans, "You are not queer, you are not alone." No campaign slogans, no rainbow-themed music videos, no statements. And yet, queer fans didn't need any of that. Because BTS taught them how to live with pride, not just in June, but every day. It was never printed on a banner. It was alive in the way they expressed themselves, in the way they treated others, in the way they created a stage big enough for all kinds of love. And that in itself was radical. Across continents, LGBTQ+ fans organized art exhibitions, fundraisers, mental health support groups, all inspired by BTS. They donated to shelters, opened hotlines, built communities. And they did it not because BTS asked them to, but because BTS made them feel worthy. This isn't just pop music anymore. It's about building a world where people can breathe easier, just because someone in Seoul reminded them that they matter. One queer fan once wrote, "BTS didn't save me by shouting, 'You're worth it.' They saved me by existing in a way that made me believe that I could exist too." Perhaps that's what makes their legacy so hauntingly beautiful. Not the size of their fandom, not the billions of streams, not the sold-out tours, but the quiet, unshakable fact that their presence helped millions find the courage to stay. So BTS never needed to be a gay icon, because somewhere along the way, they became something even more sacred. They became hope, because they listened. And sometimes, listening is the greatest act of love. Have you ever felt heard, even in silence? Tell me, what legacy do you want to leave, just by being yourself? Thank you for being here with us. We really do. If BTS has ever made you feel seen, safe, or inspired, we'd love to hear your story in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. Want us to dig deeper into each member's journey or explore how ARMY is shaping the world? Let us know. We're listening. If this video touched you, please like, subscribe to Rainbow Vibes, and share it with someone who might need a little light today. Your support helps us continue telling stories that heal, lift, and connect. See you next time, where love, identity, and music continue to change the world, one heart at a time.